All right.
Okay, go.
What's up, everybody? Welcome to Emrys's How to Make Closed Leg Wrap Pants. I'm going to start off with your material. First thing you want to do is take your material and fold it in half. So you see, I've got it long ways, all the see, not good with the words like I was saying. Have it fully extended long ways, but then fold it in half with your width. You're gonna need approximately, depending on your height, probably anywhere from 32 to 35 inches in length, and probably max, well, no, that's not true. Probably around 20 to 25 inches width-wise. My legs, the widest part I need of it, which is the legs, is 18 inches. Can you see this very well? I already have my lines made out. If you can see them,
Yeah.
like right here. Sorry.
What did you use to mark the lines?
Just white colored pencil. You can get them. This one is actually a Singer one specifically for fabric, but regular colored pencils work just as well. So what I do is I like to go out and I like to draw the pattern before I make any cuts, so I can kind of get a view of what it's going to look like. Each piece of your material is going to be half of your pair of pants. So this one purple piece is going to be the left leg. Let me back this up. The left leg and half of the waist.
Okay.
And then this yellow piece right here will be the right leg and that half of the waist. Everybody following along? So to get your measurements, you can either measure it out, or a quick and cheap way to kind of cheat it is to find a pair of pants that you already have that fit really well, a fit that you really like. Specifically, if you already have a pair of guard pants that someone else made for you or something, that will help you get an idea for the sizing you're going to do. But you're going to take your tape measure to get your, first you want to find out your waist size, and you want to take the tape and go around your waist. Actually, you're going to put it on your hips because your hips are your widest part. So you want it to go over the widest section. And, you know, I have all my garb and my belt on, so it's not going to be accurate, but mine works out to about 38 and a half. Now with the wrap pants, you want them to be a little bit big. So that first measurement is this section right here.
So the top section, right? Just to make sure.
Yeah, like this. You can see from this line right here to this, that is what is actually going to end up being the waist.
Okay.
This part right here, if you see this quarter circle, that's your inseam. To get that, you are going to get a measurement, start at where the pants are going to sit, the very top of the pants are going to sit. And then again, while wearing a pair of pants or something, this is the best way to do it. Write it down through your crotch, and to right at the center point, you're going to take that measurement from the top all the way down to the center point, which typically works to about 12 inches. Usually, again, it depends. So that the 12 inches is going to be the length here. the length of that, you're going to mark down 12 inches, make a mark there. And then the depth, honestly, I don't know how I found the depth of it, but I have made so many of the pants that I know that 6 inches works out perfectly for my sizing. Another thing you could do, take a pair of pants that you have that fit, fold them in half, and then you can see this shape in the crotch and use those as a guide. But typically give it a little bit extra. At least an inch to an inch and a half for seam allowance. But see, I've got 6 inches from, I'm doing a terrible job of this, sorry guys.
You're doing great, man. Don't worry.
6 inches from the edge of the fabric. 6 inches from the edge of the fabric here. And then go down about 6 inches, make another mark there, and then have your 12-inch mark at the bottom all the way on this folded edge.
Okay.
And then like you just follow those 2 marks straight down for a little bit, and then you want to start like just give it a nice clean crescent shape, quarter circle, and that's how you get your inseam cut. And then from there, depending on your waist size, you are going to, because these 2 pieces are going to make your waist, there's 2 pieces and they're folded in half. So you're going to have this measurement to find your waist size is actually going to be a quarter of your waist size. So if you have a 40-inch waist, you are going to have a 10-inch measurement from the inseam to the edge of the leg, and then also give yourself another inch there for the seam when you close the legs. Any questions on that?
I'm learning everything new. I'm happy because I've never known how to make pants. This is interesting.
Okay. So then next step, we've got our inseam, we've got our crotch, we've got our inseam, and we've got our waist. Now you want to get your length of the pants figured out. And again, you're going to take your tape measure. You're going to take your tape measure, have it right where the pants are going to sit at the top on the outside of your leg. And then it's best if you have someone to help you out. But if not, just kind of look and see where you're going to want the pants to end, which again, that's going to be anywhere from 32 to 35 for an average height person, typically. I like my pants to ride up high, so that way when I'm fighting, there's very little chance that my foot is going to get caught in the leg.
Oh, okay, so it doesn't drag.
So right. Your foot never goes into your leg at all, just because it's so high up. So you want to take that measurement from where the pants are going to sit to about 3, maybe 4 inches above your ankle. And that is going to be your total length. We will show here. Mine is 32 inches. That's where I want it. But if you can see, I have my mark here. Can't really see it very well. My mark is at 32 and a half. Again, the reason for that is seam allowance. After you get everything put together, the top of the pants you're going to fold over.
So you
half
talk
an
about
inch.
seam allowance. So every part of the sewing, you should allow like an inch to an inch and a half. Is that what you're saying?
Yes. It also depends on whether you plan on doing a French seam, which a French seam is you make your first seam, and then you trim that up and then fold it inside out, and then you sew it again following the same exact shape. You just do another seam. And the reason for that, here, let me show you what that does. Instead of having a frayed loose fabric on the inside of your leg, what you're going to have is a completely closed seam. I don't know if you can tell right there. can you see that? Probably not. Anyway, it's making it so that this edge right here on the inside where the seam is never going to fray because it's completely closed up.
So it's less likely to break, essentially, right?
Exactly. Just makes it more durable.
And what was this called?
So,
It was French?
French seam, yes. Okay, so once you have your inseam, your waist, and your total length, again, I like to mark it all out before I start. Take a look at it, make sure it has a good look for you, and then once you do that, it's time to start cutting. If you do not have one of these, you're just going to want to cut it with scissors, but this I have found to be incredibly helpful. A rotary cutter, a cutting board, a cutting board, the rotary cutter, and your measuring stick. And you're gonna, in any straight line, you can do it this way. This is not gonna work out. You put the measuring stick all the way up to the edge where your line is marked. Take your rotary cutter. Just follow it along. That makes it way easier than using a pair of scissors.
Can I share the stream to Facebook Live?
I'm sorry?
Did I share the screen, the stream to Facebook Live?
I don't mind, yeah.
I might have to do that. I can do it real quick.
Okay, thank you.
I'm gonna start right. Well, hang on. Let me take a second.
Okay, if you can see my marks here, I have two there, so that way I can get a visual. This inner line, this is where the leg is actually going to end up. That's the size the leg is actually going to end up, because we're going to do the French seam, so we're going to lose about an inch. We're going to lose a ½ inch on each hem. So this outer line is the one that I am going to cut.
Okay.
Again, line up my stick, my rotary cutter.
All right, I am going to remember how I do this, and I'm gonna go live right now. So
this piece right here that you're cutting off is going to come in handy. This right here is going to be the ties once you finish the pants.
What do you mean? Oh, for the legs or for the around
for the waist.
Okay.
Let's see here. Let me show you. With these pants here, if you see these ties.
I would like to say right now, this is the moment that we're going live.
Okay.
So you know, we're going live right now. And
then just take my word. These are ties.
Yes, guys, on the actual...
Okay, everything here is PG, so all we saw was his back.
Sorry, everyone. With this one right here, the inseam cut, you're gonna have to take the corner. So if you're not comfortable with the rotary cutter, it'll probably be easier just to do the scissors. But I have used these quite a bit now, so I'm fairly comfortable with them. I'm gonna do this rotary cutter because, again, I just think it's so much easier than a pair of scissors.
See, that part is the part I'm actually scared of, because I feel
Why
like
is
if I
that?
screw up that, then I ruin the entire pants.
Not quite. If you're nervous about that, what I would suggest, take your cut, take the cut so that way the pants go further away from your line. Like the part that you're cutting away, cut into that. Meaning if you make a mistake and you have to fix your cut, you can still go in a little bit.
Okay.
Do you understand what I'm saying? Like you can always cut out more, but if you cut too much out, then you have to start all over. You've ruined that fabric. Does that make sense?
That makes complete sense.
Okay. But see, look, I got a really clean cut. Once you get used to using these, I'm telling you, a lifesaver, man, lifesaver. All right, so we're gonna take all our pins out, holding these together. And we're gonna open this up so you can see the shape we are making. And again, each panel, each piece is going to be one leg. So this is going to be my left leg or right leg, whichever. And this is going to be my right leg. And these pieces here.
I was really confused because they look kind of small.
Oh, right. No. It's like I'm fairly short, so it is kind of short, but I was actually looking at Regan's picture that he posted of his pants he made, and it kind of looked a little strange from, maybe it was just the angle, but it looked like he had the crotch coming out of the length. I don't know.
It was just the way that it looked. They look like
Yeah.
yours when they were all
That's
flat.
what I think.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And just so people know, you can lay the 2 layers out at one time and cut them.
That's strange. Maybe it was just the angle, but it looked like he had. Sorry. Yeah.
Hello?
So
I'm sorry,
I
guys.
cut all of this at once. I had these folded out so that way all I had to do was one cut for the inseam, one cut for the width, and then one cut for the length. So now after you get it all cut though, and you get them pulled out, you open it up and make sure that the inseam, both panels are lined up so that the edges of each piece line up very square. You can see that. And then you take some pins and just pin it probably about every 6 inches or so.
What kind of pins are they?
Just typical sewing pins,
Oh, okay.
like that. These just are pretty with a little pearl top. Again, yeah, make sure it's lined up very well. A little bit further down, put another pin. It'll probably work out, you'll do 5. One in the very corner, one about halfway through the U shape, one at the bottom, one halfway through, one at the top. That way it's just holding it all together. So that way, once you start sewing, you don't have to fight the fabric to stay in place. Put another pin. Sorry, trying to get this to line up. I'm a bit of a perfectionist. You don't have to have it perfect because you should give yourself enough space that little bit, like say one piece is 1/8 of an inch overhanging another one. If you give yourself 1 inch for just a single hem, or 1.5 inches for French seam, you're giving yourself enough room that you don't have to worry about that little bit of overhang. It's not going to affect the size that much.
Did you already discuss front side, back side when dealing with French seam of fabric?
I have not. No, that's a good point. I am not using a printed fabric, so it doesn't really matter on this fabric. But if you are going to use a printed, if you're going to use a printed fabric, you are going to have the outside once it's finished, the side that the print is on, you are going to want to put on the inside. And then once you do your first seam, you're going to fold it inside out. It's going to look like you're making them inside out, but once you fold them, excuse me, once you do your first cut and then put them inside out, that's when the print is actually going to end up on the outside. If that makes sense.
No, it does.
But again, okay. So now we got it all pinned together. It's time to do our first
How do you sew it?
little bit of sewing. I'm going to show you right now.
Awesome.
Okay. I don't have a very good setup for doing these videos.
It's great, man, honestly.
Yeah, this is great.
Okay.
Yeah. I've learned a lot about pants making already from this video alone, man. Like I want to make my first pair. I think it'll be interesting.
They're actually really easy. Like, it is a bit daunting if you don't know the order of things, but once you see it a couple times, it's pretty simple. It's kind of hard to mess up, really. As long as, one of the biggest things I've ever had an issue with is when doing the measuring. Like, I would only measure my waist, not the hips. And then when I tried to put the pants on, it would have been a perfect fit for my waist, but it can't go over my hips. So that's a big thing. Make sure you weigh the widest part of your hips when you're doing that. Make sure that it's going to be able to fit past that. Okay, so now you got your U shape, and this is what we are going to sew. We're going to sew all the way through this U shape, just a straight stitch.
Okay.
I like to save space. Some people, if you have used a sewing machine, you will see on the steel plate, there's little markers that will tell you how much fabric, how far off the edge of the fabric the stitch is going to be. I like to put the edge of my fabric, the interior edge, right at the edge of the foot. I don't know what that ends up being, but I think it's about like 3/8 of an inch, maybe just shy of 3/8 of an inch.
Okay. We have a special request from Renzer. He wants you to flex for him.
Yeah. All right. So again, so this U shape, first thing you want to do, put your foot down, start a couple stitches, and then back stitch a little bit. And that's going to lock the thread in, so that way it can't just pull loose. And then just continue going. You're going to follow that shape.
As someone who knows nothing about sewing, what's a back stitch?
A back stitch is literally, it's exactly what it sounds like. There's a button. Some older sewing machines, you just have to rotate this knob here on the side, rotate it backwards. It literally just, instead of pushing your material forward, it's pulling it back towards you. And all it does is it locks in the stitch. It locks in the thread because you're overgoing the same spot. So it's kind of like making a knot essentially and locking the stitching in. So that way it can't pull loose.
That's actually what it is. It's a lock stitch.
I don't,
So-
pretty much like self-taught, so I don't know
Yeah.
any proper terms or anything.
I've Googled lots.
As you go, you're going to have to pull your pins out so that way you're not running them over. About done here. And once we get to the end, we're going to do the same thing. We're going to do a lock stitch.
That's it. Okay.
Again, to make it so that way that thread cannot come loose. Now, just with this single stitch right here, you are already going to have the basic shape of the pants. If you take that, step over it, boom.
Okay. Yeah, I see it.
Now, you're going to take the back side of your right leg and the front side of your right leg. Let me, hang on a second. Yeah, okay, okay. So now you're gonna open up your pants and you see this is, again, the basic shape of the pants. Make sure it's looking right. And then you are going to line this side up with that side, straighten it out, and then you're gonna sew straight down there. You can pin it, but this one's pretty easy to kind of keep in place. I typically don't. If you're trying to do any kind of like fancy paneling or something like that where there's angles, then you are going to want to pin it, because you don't want, like, say you've got a 45-degree angle cut panel, you're going to be making like a triangle shape. But if you don't pin them and make sure that it's lined up exactly right, then you're going to have one part of the triangle, like the tip of the triangle is going to be here and the other side's going to be like an inch lower.
I get that.
And that, you know, you get what I'm saying? Okay. But if you're just doing just a single colored half panel pair of pants like this, you don't really need to worry about it. Just make sure that they're lined up and keep it straight as you're going along. Again, a couple of stitches and then a lock stitch. Kind of went a little bit overboard on it.
How long have you been sewing for?
I made my first pair of pants when I was 9. So that was, how old am I? I was like 25 years ago, but I didn't really start seriously sewing until fairly recently. Like I'd mostly had ever only made like a pair of pants here and a tabard there, just whenever I needed some new garb. But recently I've kind of tried to start getting serious about it. I've just started doing the applique and the fancy panel and stuff. Thank you, man. This is actually my second attempt at applique ever.
Looks really good.
Thank you. I was pretty proud of it. I spent a lot of time on it, though. A lot of times when I was younger and I would be doing this, I would get impatient halfway through And like I'd be really taking my time at the beginning, and then would just get tired of it and would end up like breezing through it, and nothing turned out nice. This is the first thing that I like really took my time with all the way through, beginning to end.
For those that don't know, what exactly is applique?
Applique is essentially, if this is not going to be any kind of proper definition or anything, but you're essentially using stitching to make a pattern out of it. Kelly, you probably have a better way to describe this if you want to.
No, you should do it. I'm gonna make you do it. No.
Okay.
You,
Okay.
No.
So mean.
No, I mean I can. You
Oh, that's fine.
okay, I'll let you do it then. You passed it right to me, and I'm like, nope.
No, okay.
Well, guys think I'm saying it's decorative stitching is what he's calling it. He's put that in the chat.
Essentially, I don't know if you have to use another piece of fabric, but like with this, all of this that I have done, you can see that like I have layered another piece of fabric, cut it out to a specific shape, and then you use a zigzag stitch or a satin stitch when you like make it very short and tight. That's called a satin stitch. It's the same thing as like if you ever look on any sewing machine since forever has a simple zigzag stitch. The only difference is you just shorten the length of the stitch, and that's what gives it that like that real clean edge, especially when you use another color that contrasts. It really makes that shape pop.
Very cool.
Add some more onto that. It's applique for us is when you're attaching two pieces of fabric together and then sewing them together in some way. We normally use the zigzag stitch, and we call it a satin stitch. It's really just a zigzag stitch, but you can do applique in other ways. You can go like straight across it. You can do the decorative stitches that are on there. It's basically just a way to attach the fabric without the edges fraying. And then there's also reverse applique where you're tucking your top fabric over, or excuse me, under, and then sewing it to a piece of fabric behind it, which you don't normally see in amp guards. So we usually do the what we call regular applique with the satin stitch on it.
And I highly recommend Wonder Under as well. That's like you use that to, it's basically you use it to hold it together until it's completely sewn together. You use it with an iron, you put it between and it sticks it.
PJ uses a glue stick.
Yeah. That's what I use that same stuff on this. It's actually, it's an adhesive webbing taper. It looks just like paper.
Mm-hmm.
And you actually draw the shape out on the paper, iron your fabric to that, and it makes it a little bit more rigid, and it makes it easier when you're holding it in place. Otherwise, you're going to have to like pin it all over the place just to make sure that when you're doing your stitching to attach the two pieces, it's not moving around like crazy.
Okay, and it probably makes it pop more, right? Like stand up of it.
Well, you're taking the once you iron it and then put it on the second piece, you're actually peeling the other paper back, because the paper is just there's a double-sided adhesive on it. So you iron it onto the first piece and the glue is sticking to that. And then once you want to actually attach it to the other piece of fabric, you pull the paper off and then put the fabric with the glue piece on it on the other piece of fabric, iron that on, and that like makes the glue stick it together. It does make it, just because you have an extra layer of fabric though, it does make it a little bit more stiff. I don't know if the webbing actually adds any sturdiness to it or not, but it does make it a little bit more stiff just by the applique. So we're doing this other side, closing this side of the pants up. And you're going to start on the front side. I am actually doing this wrong. What I should have done was started this stitch about 6 inches below the waist. That's okay. I have a seam ripper, and that's why I put that in the material list, because I always do stuff like this. The reason you want to do that is you can actually sew it all the way up, but you're going to have to, one, make sure that your size, your measurements are accurate, so that way it will actually fit you. And then you can use a tie, like you can fold a piece up and have like a string inside of that when you fold it and hem it and tie it up. That's not, I like to do it where the tie actually wraps around your back, and then the back piece wraps around the front, if that makes any sense to you. But that's okay.
I do want to give a heads up. It is 20 minutes until the next class. So just so you are aware.
Okay.
No pressure.
Once you get to the end again, don't forget to do the back stitch or the lock stitch. What are the technical terms here? Excuse me. Okay, now, so for the French seam, you're going to fold this whole pair of pants inside out. All right. I did this completely backwards. All right, so we're going to fold this inside out. And I'm apparently not going to do the French seam on the inseam because I did not line it up properly. The seam that we just did to close up the leg, you are going to pull that tight. Pull that tight so you can see where the two pieces join together. And it is best if once you do that, you iron it to hold in place. And pull it tight. Can you all see me from there?
Yeah, we can see.
Oop, right. Pull that tight. Iron it out. And this is just going to hold the fabric together. It's so that way once we do the second seam, it's not going to be moving around as much, because that fold is
How often do you
actually
iron?
creased into it.
Just that one time, or do you iron it every other time?
Oh
you sew?
no. You don't have to iron every time you sew, or at least I don't. I pretty much only iron if I'm doing a hem where it's like one long fold that you have to do. The reason I pretty much every time I iron is if I do not fold it and have that crease actually into it, then it's going to pop open. That's a terrible way to describe it. But essentially, you see how, I let go of it and it's holding that closed shape.
Yeah, I can see that.
That's because I ironed it. Now see, I did not iron this half of it. It's not very, can't really see it, but it's kind of opened up a little
Yeah, you
bit.
can see the comparison.
You can tell the difference. That's the difference between it. It's just holding that crease in there, so it makes it easier. Nothing's moving around, shifting around. I actually just since we are running out of time,
You have 16.
you,
You have some time. It's okay.
okay.
I'm just trying to
Got me
give
sweating.
ample time warning instead of like, oh my God, stop right now.
So now, because I'm going to have to, I still have to rip this stitch again. Just when you do your first seam to close the legs, leave about 6 inches from the waist. Start your seam about 6 inches down from the waist, so that way it's a little bit open at the top. So you see how I have it here, just a little bit overlapping. That would be the way you want to do the first one. And you also, you can kind of see, especially with such a light colored fabric like this, you can see the fabric on the inside. You want to make sure that the needle where you are sewing is actually penetrating past that interior piece, because otherwise then you're going to be able to see that frayed edge on the inside, and there's no point in doing the French seam if you can see that.
Okay.
I would like to say that I appreciate that your phone has compensated for the very loud sewing machine, or you muted yourself.
Oh, I muted myself?
That's great.
Oh, I
Thank
hear
you
you.
for muting yourself, because that's loud. I don't hear it. It's good. Everything's great.
Oh, okay.
Because he's
Okay,
using AirPods, right?
Yes, I am.
It has the noise canceling for the sewing machine.
Yeah, AirPods are pretty awesome. So I should have ironed this one too. I'm gonna do that real quick. Again, I'm just ironing it so that way that the fabric naturally sits with the fold in there and it's not trying to pull open anytime I let go. I'm used to being able to do these where I can start and stop the video so I can take out any mess ups. You guys are getting to see it raw.
You're good, man. I think this is the best experience because then like I can ask questions live and just be like, all right, what are you doing here? What are you doing here? Because like
That is
I have no idea.
a good point. I do like that part of it too. Okay, so the part here where I did this second stitch where I started it about approximately 6 inches down from the waist, I am folding it over so that way they line up. That way I can see where it starts or where it would line up on this second side. So I'm going to hold them together and
Actually, we have a question that isn't good for you. What's the easiest to sew that you think is the easiest to sew?
What is the easiest thing to sew?
Mm-hmm.
A tabard.
Split pants.
Split pants, super easy. Yeah, we would already be done with a pair of split pants.
A corset.
A tabard, though, I mean, really, you can
corset,
take.
Kelly.
Kidding.
Shut your mouth, Kelly. Alona.
A tabard, you can take one giant long piece of fabric, cut a hole hem that. Technically, you don't even have to hem that. Cut the hole and you're done. But a tabard is probably the easiest thing to start with, because all you have to do, cut the hole, hem that, and then if you want to, hem the sides so it looks somewhat clean.
Yeah.
Bonbon has a question. What would you recommend to start out with when someone who's never sewn before?
Tabard.
Sorry?
Either a tabard or a pair of split pants. Split pants, for the reason for that is because it does have the U-shaped hem that you have to do, and that way you've got a little bit of a challenge. There's really very little challenge with a tabard though. So like I would start off with either a tabard or split pants, depending on how much challenge you want and how much background you have, I guess.
Thank you for that.
Mhm.
You know, I think personally I would go with a pair of split pants, because on a tabard you have to cut and roll the neckline on it, or find some way to attach like bias tape. So I am horrible with necklines. I would take a pair of split pants any day.
Fair point. I would agree with that.
I think my first tabard was just one of my t-shirts. I cut 3 holes right here and put a string through, and then ripped the sleeves off. And it was usable in a safe. So I was like, this works.
So
Okay, you got about 10 minutes. I'm going to stop telling you these things. Sorry.
no, you're fine. So pull it out one more time. And now here's the problem. If I hadn't sewed all the way up on that first one, we would be very close to finished. You would have to fold about 1/2 inch to 1 inch from the top, fold that down. And then this is something you would want to iron. So that way that fold is naturally creased in there. However, since I had already messed that up and I'm going to have to rip this seam, right now I'm just going to show you how to make the ties. And remember, I said earlier, those pieces that came off of our cut are going to come in handy. This extra bit of fabric that we got when we first cut the length of the side of the legs is what we are actually going to use for the ties. So you're going to take these pieces here. There should be 4 of them. And you are going to take it long ways and fold it in half. Fold it in half. Iron that down flat. And now we are going to stitch down here, this one side of the short end, and then all the way down the open end on the long side.
Okay. So it acts just like a belt, right? Just to make sure.
Mm-hmm. It's, yeah, essentially. It just like a belt, except instead of having any kind of buckle, you have to tie it to the other side. If that makes sense.
Mm-hmm. Shelly says it's a double rolled hem. Flip the hem in and stitch, or iron, flip the hem in again to hide the edge.
Yes. Yes. You stitch and then you're going to flip it inside out to hide the stitch.
Okay.
That's the way I do it. Although on the piece that you're attaching to the waistline, that you are going to fold again, and then sew that. So that's going to be I don't know what the word is, but that's how you're going to hide that loose edge. I want this very tight. I want to keep as much space inside so it's easy to open up when you roll it inside out. So I'm making it as tight to the edge. The needle is going as tight to the edge of that open end as I can.
Okay. And what about people that use, instead of using that, they use like drawer strings? Would you recommend, because I know I have a pair of fisherman pants I bought off Amazon and they use like the string method. Is that the same thing or is it a little different?
It's similar. The difference is with that, you would just, when you go to do the hem on the top of the waist, you would just make sure that you fold it wide enough to where that string can fit in there. And then after you've sewed around the waist hem, you're going to leave a little opening inside the front and then feed your drawstring through. I don't like the drawstring because it makes it so that way all of the tension of the pants is like digging into one part of your waist, whereas this right here, the ties, they kind of spread out the tension all the way around your waist, or at least in a wider space than the drawstring. That's my personal opinion.
Another thing I wanted to ask, you know, like when you're running in basketball shorts and they hook onto your hips, do the pants do the same thing? So it's easy to run in, or is it more difficult, you would say?
Oh no, yeah, it's very easy to run in these. You just have to tie it tight and have it sized well, but I have no problem running in these. And that's another reason why I make it so that way it comes up like a couple inches above the ankle.
Okay.
It's before running, so that way you're not going to get tripped up on it. Because with the really wide leg, if you have your pants too long, it's very easy for your foot to get hooked in when you're running. And I've eaten dirt quite a few times trying to run with pants that went down to the top of my shoe. So I do not do that.
Because I think I've seen Mikey do it and he just like face plant straight to the ground.
Exactly. Okay, so now we've got this, and you're gonna do that 3 more times with the other spare pieces. And if it's wide enough, you're gonna start pulling it inside out. I don't know if you can see. I like to get something like a golf club shaft that is getting ready to be a sword here in the future. And once you start doing that, you kind of like use that to push it through. And then you're gonna pull that clean so that way it's nice, and you can see the stitching. Iron it flat. Iron it flat. And then again, I'm not going to be able to show you how to actually do this, unfortunately. But again, if I were to have done this properly, this part right here, from here, the top of the waist, to about there would be open. and I would attach this and fold it once. And then I would sew that to the inside of the pant.
I'm
Okay.
gonna give you,
One of the comments mentioned something about bias tape where you sew along the edges.
Uh,
Also, the
Bias tape. For pants, I never use bias tape on the waist or anything like that. I only ever use bias tape for the bottom of your leg. So
I just want to give you a heads up. You have 1 minute.
yeah, that's what I'm
sorry,
I'm just gonna wrap it up there.
but that's okay.
But you're gonna
You only have one of the people so far.
okay. But yeah, you would fold that, sew it to the inside of the open part of your waist, and then do that on all 4 sides. So this part of the leg, this would be open. So you would have 2 loose edges, open edges here. So one to each open corner, and then fold it down to get your waist hem. Sorry, I didn't do it properly or have enough time to finish up, but thank you guys for coming.
No, it was great. I'm sorry
that
that,
means a lot, honestly.
yeah,
Oh,
sorry.
cool.
Everything's, Arniak, if you want to keep it, if, because we have, I think it's 3 people and they haven't shown up yet. If you want to keep going for a few more minutes until everybody gets in. We can,
Sure. Okay.
you know, whatever you like. I don't mean to be like,
Also, that's cool. I'm gonna keep working on it anyway. Another thing, if anybody has any questions that I didn't answer, or that because we're not going to be able to finish it completely, there's questions left open, feel free to message me, or maybe on the Coronation page, you know, ask a question, just tag me in it, JT Lotts, LOTTS, feel free. And I will help any way I can. Again, I do not have any technical knowledge, so I'm going to be like,
special question for you.
hold that thing, huh?
Guys and Gun wants to ask, do you take commissions?
I do. I really don't charge much because, again, I'm just starting to really get seriously into this. So I'm definitely not the most talented garber in Amtgard or in Neverwinter. So I don't charge much as far as labor, pretty much, depending on the complexity of what you want done, plus the cost of materials. I probably would do anywhere from 20 to, if you're looking for something like super hardcore, 100 plus price of materials, but that's like way top end. But yes, absolutely.
I'm trying to, I need to tell you to wrap it up, but I want to tell you you should charge more. Your work is valuable.
Yeah.
And you're good at what you do. So I'm going to stop recording.
Always charge for your time.
Yes.
Thank you. Okay.
Is it okay? And I'm going to stop live.
All right.
Okay.
Well, then I will, I'm going to message you. But anyway, thank you guys. Have a good night, everyone.